The church clock had 3 more slow, ceremonial ticks before the pastor was due to ask the question that would change my life forever. Every face in the pews was lit by expectation. Soft smiles, damp eyes, phones held like talismans. White lilies leaned toward the aisle as if eavesdropping. My father's hand was like a stone in mine. Hudson's thumb found mine back and squeezed, steady as a promise. I practiced my smile in the polished brass of the candle stand and felt, for one bright clean second, that everything had landed exactly where it was supposed to. I had worn this moment on my skin for years. The rehearsal dinners, the late-night spreadsheets of guest lists, the small argument over whether Hudson's suit should be charcoal or navy. The whole city had been narrowed down in my head, to this aisle and that final breath. I remember thinking, absurdly, foolishly, that life was finally obeying me. The organ swelled. My mother dabbed at her eyes with the corner of her handkerchief, and Agnes, my sister, the woman who taught me to braid my hair and steal my father's tobacco, sat in the front row with a smile so calm it might have been carved. Agnes, who had once whispered secrets in my ear like currency. Agnes, whose laugh used to ripple across family kitchens and drown out bad days. She had been the shadow to my light and, I thought, my closest ally. Hudson's jaw looked chiseled enough to hold up a city. He caught my eye and mouthed, "You look beautiful," like a line from every movie I'd ever loved. Behind him, the best men shuffled. The florist adjusted a boutonniere with trembling fingers, and a little rustle moved through the assembled relatives. The quiet, expectant hum of a crowd leaning forward to witness a joy they believed in. Then Agnes stood. Her movement split me into 1,000 tiny, indecipherable parts. It wasn't the standing that made the air go thin. It was the way she moved, like someone who had practiced calm until it became cruelty. She stepped out into the aisle as though she belonged there more than I did, and when she smiled at me, it was the smile of someone who knows the exact weight of what she's about to drop. "Before you say, 'I do,'" she said, and the syllables landed as surgical, precise things in the hush. "I'm pregnant. And it's Hudson's." Sound swallowed itself. A spoon clattered somewhere to my right. A child's breath hitched. My knees went from steady to a dissolve in a single heartbeat. The lilies seemed to lean back, offended. My throat burned with ammonia and I tasted nothing but the metallic ring of disbelief. The organ faltered like someone had forgotten a note. Laughter, incredulous, wet with hysteria, bubbled from some distant mouth and died where it began. My mother's hand convulsed, my father's face went the color of old paper, and Hudson's face collapsed into the slow horror of someone trying to impersonate shock. He opened his mouth and the world narrowed to the shape of the question. Why? I thought of every private corner of our life. Late-night talks, his fingers in my hair, the grocery lists and the quiet sharing of coffee. None of it prepared me for how hollow those memories would feel under a simple untruth. Then Shelley did the thing that made the church stop breathing altogether. My niece, 9 years old, knees covered in sun-faded denim, hair tied into 2 functional untidy buns, stood up from her seat like someone much older and more dangerous than her size allowed. She carried a tablet with a green dinosaur sticker in the corner. It was small against her palms, but she held it like evidence. Her brown eyes cut across the room and found mine, and for a second I saw not the child who learned to count on her fingers in my kitchen, but a tiny prosecutor who knew the weight of truth. "That's a lie," Shelley announced, voice clear enough to cut glass. She didn't scream, she didn't wail. She said it like a verdict. "I can prove it." The room folded in on itself. Silence hurled into the rafters and hung there, taut. For a breathless instant, the only sound was the whisper of the organ pipes and the damp thump of my own pulse in my ears. Agnes's smile sharpened into something animal. Surprise and calculation braided into the same expression. Hudson's face went unreadable. My father made a sound that could have been a prayer or a groan. Shelley held the tablet up. Its black screen blinked awake and threw a pale, guilty light across her face. Fingers smaller than a promise tapped the glass. People leaned forward as if proximity might alter the truth. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My knees, traitorous, gave a little and I had to grab the pew to keep from falling. The screen flickered, a video starting, and in that long, impossible shuffle of seconds I felt the last of the life I thought I'd been promised peel away. Everyone waited, suspended on the hinge of what came next. A video, a confession, a fabrication, and whatever it was would either be a blade or a bomb. Shelley's voice, small and sure, overrode even the thundering in my ears. Play it, she said. The tablet brightened. The first frame crawled into motion. And then, before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. The video quality was grainy, the kind you get from a child's device recording through a crack in a door. But the audio was crystal clear. Agnes's voice came first. I recognized it instantly, that particular lilt she used when she thought she was being clever, when she was spinning a web. It has to be at the wedding, she said. Maximum impact. Maximum humiliation. The image sharpened. It was Agnes's bedroom, the one in the house she shared with her husband Frank, my brother-in-law. The camera angle was low, definitely recorded from somewhere hidden. A shelf maybe. Or propped behind books. On screen, Agnes sat on her bed, phone pressed to her ear, painting her toenails a shade of red I'd helped her pick out 2 months ago. We'd gone shopping together. She told me she wanted to look good for my wedding. She told me she was so happy for me. She deserves it, Agnes continued, and the venom in her voice made my stomach drop through the church floor. Little Miss Perfect. Always getting everything handed to her. Mom and Dad always loved her more. Always. A man's voice crackled through her phone speaker, tinny but audible. And you're sure Hudson will go along with this? Agnes laughed. It was a sound I'd heard 1,000 times growing up. When she'd stolen my diary and read it to her friends, when she told my first boyfriend I had a crush on someone else, when she'd borrowed my car and returned it with an empty tank and a dent she never mentioned. I'd always forgiven her. He was my sister. Family. Hudson doesn't need to go along with anything, Agnes said, inspecting her nails. He doesn't even know. That's the beauty of it. I'll stand up, make the announcement, and even if he denies it, the seed of doubt will be planted. Maddie will never look at him the same way. The marriage will be poisoned before it even starts. My legs gave out. I didn't fall. Someone caught me. My father, I think. His arms felt like iron bands, the only thing keeping me upright as the church erupted in chaos. Wait. Shelley's voice cut through the noise. There's more. The video continued. The male voice on the phone said, "What about the pregnancy test? You said you had proof." "Please," Agnes scoffed. "I bought 5 tests from different stores. Peed on one, positive obviously. I'm 8 weeks along. But I'll tell everyone it's Hudson's baby. Frank and Hudson have similar enough features. By the time the baby comes, I'll have already destroyed her perfect little life. And Frank's so stupid he actually believes it's his." The screen showed her standing, walking to her dresser. She pulled out a small box. I recognized the brand. A pregnancy test. She held it up to the light, admiring the 2 pink lines like they were a weapon. "Frank's going to raise Hudson's baby," the voice said almost admiringly. "That's cold, Agnes." "No," Agnes corrected, her smile widening into something feral. "Frank's going to raise Frank's baby while everyone thinks it's Hudson's. That's the genius. I don't even have to sleep with Hudson. Just make everyone think I did." The church had gone from shocked silence to an uproar. Voices overlapped, people stood, someone was crying. I heard my mother say my sister's name like a curse. I heard Hudson shouting, "I never touched her. I swear to God, Matty, I never." But I couldn't look at him. Couldn't look at anything except my sister's face, which had drained of all color, all that practiced calm evaporating like morning dew under a blowtorch. "Shelley," Agnes said, and her voice was different now, thin, reedy, desperate. "Shelley, sweetheart, where did you get that?" My niece stood her ground. 9 years old and braver than anyone in that church. "You left your bedroom door open last week," she said simply. "I heard you talking. So I set up my tablet to record. I've been recording you for 8 days. She swiped the screen. Another video queued up. This one showed Agnes in her kitchen talking to someone off-screen. A woman I didn't recognize at first, then did. Bethany, Agnes's friend from college. The one who'd always been jealous of me, who'd made snide comments about my job, my apartment, my relationship. "The plan is perfect," Agnes was saying, chopping vegetables with sharp, angry movements. "Maddie thinks she's so special. Designer dress, expensive venue, Mr. Perfect with his construction company and his stupid dimples. I've been in her shadow our whole lives. Not anymore." "You really hate her that much?" Bethany asked, sipping wine from a glass that caught the kitchen light. I don't hate her, Agnes said, and somehow that was worse. I just want her to hurt the way I've hurt. Every boyfriend I ever had ended up asking about her. Every accomplishment I achieved Mom and Dad barely noticed because Maddie was doing something better. My wedding was nice. Hers is fairy tale. I'm tired of being the discount version. The tablet screen went dark. Shelley lowered it, looking at me with eyes too old for her face. I have 17 more videos, she said quietly. Should I keep playing them? No, I heard myself say. My voice came from somewhere outside my body, detached and floating. No, that's enough. I turned to Agnes. Really looked at her. The sister who'd braided my hair. The sister who'd held me when our grandmother died. The sister who'd spent the last 8 weeks planning to detonate my life in front of 200 people. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Matty, she started. I can explain. Explain what? The words came out like broken glass. Explain that you hate me so much you'd nuke my wedding? Explain that you were going to let everyone think Hudson cheated on me? Explain that you were going to let your own husband raise a baby believing a lie. I wasn't going to go through with it. Agnes's voice pitched high, frantic. I was venting. I was angry. I wasn't actually. You're wearing the dress, my mother said. Everyone turned to look at her. Mom's face was a mask of horrified realization, her handkerchief clutched so tight her knuckles had gone white. What? Agnes said. The dress, Mom repeated louder now. The one you said you bought for Maddie's wedding. It's not a guest dress. It's cut to show a stomach. You were going to stand up there and make sure everyone could imagine you pregnant. Agnes looked down at herself. She was wearing an emerald green dress that I'd thought was just a stylish choice. Empire waist flowing fabric. Now I saw it for what it was. A costume. A prop for her performance. And the hair, my Aunt Diane added from 3 rows back. She'd always been sharp. You're wearing it the same way Maddie wore hers at Hudson's company party. The one where she announced their engagement. The details clicked into place like a combination lock opening. Agnes had styled herself as a mirror of that night. She'd wanted everyone to make the connection. Hudson got with Agnes the same night he committed to Maddie. It was calculated. Precise. Frank, my brother-in-law, finally found his voice. He'd been sitting next to where Agnes had been, frozen in shock, but now he stood. Is the baby even mine? He asked, and the question came out broken. Agnes's face did something complicated. Of course it's yours, Frank. Don't, he said, holding up a hand. Don't you dare lie to me right now. I heard the video. You said I was stupid. You said I'd raise a baby believing a lie. The lie was that it was Hudson's. Agnes shrieked. The baby is yours, Frank. I swear I just wanted to make Maddie think. Get out. My father's voice cut through everything else. He never shouted. Never. He was a quiet man, a gentle man, the kind who fixed broken things and read bedtime stories and taught us that family meant unconditional love. But there was nothing gentle in his voice now. Get out of this church, he said, and each word fell like a judge's gavel. You are not my daughter. Not after this. Daddy, Agnes reached for him. He stepped back like she was poisonous. I don't know who you are, he said, and I watched my sister crumble under the weight of it. The girl I raised wouldn't do this. Get out. Now. Agnes looked around wildly, seeking an ally, seeking anyone who might defend her. She found nothing but disgust and horror. Even Bethany had disappeared, slinking out a side door. This is insane. Agnes tried one more time, her voice breaking. You're going to ruin my life over a stupid joke? I wasn't going to actually. You stood up, Hudson said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. You stood up in front of everyone and said I got you pregnant. You were going to let Maddie believe it. You were going to destroy us. And you would have, I added, finding my voice somewhere in the rubble of my shock. If Shelley hadn't recorded you, you would have done it, and smiled while I fell apart. Agnes's face twisted into something ugly. The mask was off now, the pretty sister act abandoned. So what if I would have, she spat. You've had everything your whole life, Maddie. Everything. You don't know what it's like to be second best, to be the one people settle for. I was never competing with you. I shouted back, and all the hurt of the last 10 minutes poured out. You're my sister. I loved you. I trusted you. And that's exactly why it would have been so perfect, Agnes said, and she actually laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Because you never saw it coming. You never see anything that doesn't fit into your perfect little world. My mother slapped her. The sound cracked through the church like a whip. Mom had never raised a hand to either of us. Not once. We'd been raised with timeouts and stern talks, never violence. But there she stood, hands still raised, face wet with tears, looking at Agnes like she was looking at a stranger. You broke my heart, Mom whispered. How could you? Agnes touched her cheek, eyes wide. For a second I thought she might apologize. Might break down and confess and beg forgiveness. Instead she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin and walked out of the church. Frank followed her, but not before stopping in front of me. I'm sorry, Maddie, he said, his voice thick. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I know, I told him because I did. Frank was a good man who'd had the misfortune of marrying my sister. He left. The church doors swung shut behind them with a sound like finality. For a long moment no one moved. No one spoke. We all stood in the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Then Hudson took my hand. Matty, he said, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I swear on everything I have, I never touched her. Never even thought about it. You have to believe me. I looked at him. Really looked. At the man I'd chosen to build a life with, whose face I'd memorized in 1,000 different lights. I thought about the videos, about Agnes's confession that Hudson didn't even know about the plan. I believe you, I said. His shoulders sagged with relief. But I can't marry you today, I continued, and watched that relief turn to panic. Maddie, please. Not because I don't trust you, I said quickly. Because I can't. I can't do this right now. I can't stand up here and say vows while my sister's betrayal is still ringing in my ears. I need time. I need to breathe. Hudson looked like I'd shot him, but he nodded. Whatever you need, he said. I'll wait as long as it takes. I turned to the assembled crowd. 200 faces stared back, hungry for resolution, for closure, for an ending to this disaster. I'm sorry, I said, and my voice carried in the horrible silence. The wedding is postponed. Please, please just go. The bride's room at the back of the church became my prison for the next hour. I couldn't face going home, couldn't face the reception hall where untouched catering waited and a DJ was probably wondering why the bride and groom hadn't arrived. My mother sat beside me holding my hand. My father paced. Hudson had respected my request for space and left, but not before making me promise to call him. Shelley was the one who finally broke the silence. Are you mad at me? She asked, standing in the doorway with her tablet still clutched to her chest. Mad at you? I looked at my niece through the blur of tears I'd been fighting. Shelley, you saved me. Mom's going to hate me, she said matter-of-factly. She's going to know I'm the one who ruined her plan. The clinical way she said it broke something in me. I held out my arms and she came running, this little girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast, who'd seen her mother's cruelty and chosen to stop it. Your mom doesn't get to hate you, I said fiercely, holding her tight. And if she tries, you have a whole family who's going to protect you. Can I live with you? The question was small, muffled against my shoulder. I looked at my parents. Mom's face crumpled. Dad's jaw set in a hard line. We'll figure something out, Dad said. Frank's a good man. He'll make sure you're safe. But yes, if you need to, you can stay with any of us. Shelley nodded against my dress and I felt her shoulders shake with silent sobs. My phone buzzed. Then again. And again. In the space of 30 seconds, it went from occasional vibration to constant rattling. It's online, my cousin Trevor said, appearing in the doorway. He was 23, perpetually glued to his phone, and looked simultaneously horrified and grimly satisfied. Someone recorded the whole thing and posted it. It's everywhere. Define everywhere, I said weakly. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. The video of Shelley playing the recording and Agnes's face when she got caught is going viral. Like viral. 3 million views in the last hour. I should have felt violated. Exposed. Instead, I felt a strange sort of numbness. What did it matter who saw? The worst had already happened. There's more, Trevor continued, scrolling on his phone. People are finding Agnes's social media. They're tearing her apart in the comments. And someone found Bethany's accounts too. They're connected through photos. People are calling them out. Trevor, Mom said sharply. Now's not the time. Actually, I said slowly, maybe it is. Everyone looked at me. An idea was forming. A terrible, ruthless, perfectly calculated idea. Agnes had wanted to humiliate me in public in front of everyone I loved. She'd wanted to plant poison in my marriage before it even began. She'd been willing to detonate my life for her own satisfaction. She deserved to understand exactly how that felt. Trevor, I said carefully, can you send me the link to the viral video? He did immediately. I watched it on my phone, saw myself standing at the altar, saw Agnes's announcement, saw Shelley's intervention. Saw my sister's face when she was exposed. The video cut off right after my mother slapped her. The comments were brutal. What kind of monster does this to her own sister? That little girl is braver than most adults I know. The sister belongs in jail for emotional terrorism. Anyone found her workplace? She shouldn't be employed. I should have felt sorry for her. She was my sister. The girl who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd let me sleep in her bed during thunderstorms when we were kids. But all I felt was cold, clear fury. I want the full videos, I said to Shelley. All 17 of them. Can you send them to me? Shelley nodded, understanding passing between us like a current. She was 9, but she'd learned early that some people didn't deserve mercy. Maddie, what are you thinking? Dad asked warily. I'm thinking Agnes wanted to make a public spectacle, I said. She got her wish. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Over the next 3 days I didn't leave my apartment. Hudson came by with food and sat with me in silence, not pushing, just being there. I let him. Slowly, in the quiet of my living room, I started to trust again that he was exactly who I'd thought he was. A good man who'd been weaponized without his knowledge. But Agnes was a different story. I spent those 3 days watching the videos Shelley had sent me. All 17 of them. They painted a picture of a woman who'd spent months planning my destruction with the same care most people put into planning a vacation. In one video she practiced her announcement in front of a mirror, testing different phrasings. I'm pregnant with Hudson's baby. No, too direct. Hudson got me pregnant. Too accusatory. I'm pregnant and it's your Groom's. Perfect. Maximum shock value. In another she talked to Bethany about how she'd been stealing small items from my apartment for weeks. A photo here, a piece of jewelry there, to plant in Hudson's car and discover later if the wedding announcement didn't fully destroy us. In a third she discussed baby names with Frank, smiling at him with what looked like genuine affection, then turned away and rolled her eyes the moment he left the room. He was a stranger. A calculated, cruel stranger wearing my sister's face. By day 4 I'd made my decision. I called a meeting. Not just family. Hudson, my parents, Shelley, Frank, my Aunt Diane, who'd always been the family's quiet backbone. I also invited my best friend Ramona, who worked in PR and had a mind like a steel trap. We gathered in my parents' living room, the same room where we'd had countless Christmas mornings and birthday parties. The cognitive dissonance made me dizzy. I want to destroy her, I said without preamble. Completely. I want Agnes to understand what it feels like to have your life dismantled piece by piece. And I need your help to do it. Silence. Then Frank said, I'm in. Everyone turned to look at him. He looked hollowed out, like someone had scooped out everything soft and left only the framework. She's been lying to me for months, he continued. Playing me. Using the baby as a weapon. I went through her phone last night. He pulled out his own phone, pulled up screenshots. She's been planning this since before she even got pregnant. She stopped taking her birth control on purpose, got pregnant to add authenticity to her lie. She was going to tell me the baby came early if anyone did the math. Mom made a wounded sound. Frank, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, he said, and there was steel in his voice I'd never heard before. Be angry. I am. She made a fool of me, tried to destroy Maddie, and involved our daughter in her schemes. She doesn't deserve mercy. What's the plan? Ramona asked, ever practical. I laid it out. Step by step. Beat by beat. It was comprehensive, ruthless, and perfectly legal. When I finished, Dad looked at me with something like pride mixed with concern. That's going to end her, Maddie. Good, I said simply. Phase 1 began with the videos. I didn't release all 17 at once. That would have been too much, too fast, too easy to dismiss as a one-time breakdown. Instead, Ramona helped me create a website. Clean, professional, devastating. The truth about Agnes Hartley. We released one video per day. Each one carefully selected to show a different facet of her cruelty. The mirror practice video went first, showing premeditation. The comments exploded. By video 3, the one where she discussed stealing my belongings to plant as evidence, local news had picked up the story. Viral wedding sabotage. Sister's elaborate plot exposed. By video 7, national news was running segments. A psychologist was brought on to discuss the pathology of sibling rivalry. A lawyer discussed whether what Agnes had done could be considered harassment or emotional abuse. Agnes's employer, a prestigious marketing firm, fired her by video 10. They released a statement about not tolerating employees who displayed such profound moral failings. Frank filed for divorce by video 12. He also filed for sole custody of Shelley, citing the videos as evidence of Agnes's unstable behavior and poor judgment. The internet did the rest. Agnes's social media, which she'd locked down after the church incident, was hacked by someone I never identified. Every post, every photo, every comment was screenshotted and analyzed. People found old college photos where she'd photobombed my pictures with sneers. They found posts where she'd made subtle digs at me disguised as compliments. So proud of my little sister for her promotion. Some of us have to work hard for years to get where she got so easily. Someone found her high school yearbook quote, "Success is the best revenge." They memed it. Turned it into a joke. Turned Agnes into a punchline. Her friends disappeared. Bethany issued a public apology on Instagram, claiming she'd only been humoring Agnes's venting, and never thought she'd actually go through with anything. The internet didn't buy it. Bethany's employer, a small nonprofit, quietly let her go after donors started pulling out. Agnes's landlord, she and Frank had been renting, evicted them, citing the media circus as a disturbance to other tenants. By video 17, Agnes had no job, no home, no friends, and no husband. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt nothing. Just a cold, empty space where my sister used to live in my heart. Phase 2 was quieter but more permanent. I hired a lawyer. Not for me, for Shelley. My niece had been the hero of the story in the public eye, but I knew the reality was more complicated. She was a 9-year-old who'd had to parent herself, who'd witnessed her mother's cruelty and felt responsible for stopping it. The lawyer helped Frank document everything. Every video, every instance of Agnes involving Shelley in her schemes, every time Agnes had left Shelley alone to meet with Bethany or practice her church announcement. The custody hearing was swift and brutal. Agnes showed up looking haggard, wearing clothes I recognized as being at least 3 years old. She'd lost weight. Her hair was limp. She looked like a ghost of herself. She tried to argue that she was a good mother, that one mistake didn't define her. The judge watched 3 of the videos. Just 3. "Mrs. Hartley," the judge said, her voice clipped and professional, "you involved your minor daughter in a plot to emotionally devastate her aunt. You prioritized your vendetta over your child's well-being. The court finds that you are not currently fit to have custody." Agnes opened her mouth to protest. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "you are to have supervised visitation only, pending completion of a psychological evaluation and parenting classes. This court's priority is the well-being of the child, not the convenience of the parent." The gavel fell. Agnes looked across the courtroom at me, and for the first time since the church we made eye contact. He mowed, "I'm sorry." I looked away. Phase 3 was personal. Hudson and I rescheduled our wedding for 3 months later. Small, intimate, just immediate family and close friends. Shelley was the flower girl. She wore a dress she picked herself, green with dinosaurs on it, because she was 9 and she could. We didn't live stream it. We didn't post about it on social media. We kept it ours. But we did send Agnes an invitation. She showed up. I'd somehow known she would. She stood at the back of my parents' garden where we'd set up the ceremony, wearing a dress that hung on her frame, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. I saw her while I was walking down the aisle on my father's arm. Our eyes met again. Hers were red-rimmed, pleading. I smiled. Not a cruel smile. Not a triumphant one. Just a smile that said, "I'm happy. You couldn't take this from me." Then I married Hudson in a ceremony that was everything our first attempt should have been. Full of joy, full of love, full of promise. Agnes left before the reception. I watched her go from the window of the house where I was touching up my makeup. She walked slowly, shoulders curved inward, a person hollowed out by her own choices. Ramona came to stand beside me. "Feel better?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I feel finished. Thought it was over. The revenge complete, the marriage secured, the family healing. I thought we could all move forward. I was wrong." 6 months after my actual wedding, I got a call from Frank. "You need to come over," he said without preamble. "Now, bring Hudson." We went. Frank was living in a small house across town with Shelley, rebuilding their lives piece by piece. When we arrived, he looked grim. "Shelley's been having nightmares," he said. "About her mom. The therapist has been helping, but last night she woke up screaming about something she remembered. Something she saw." Shelley appeared from the hallway, clutching a stuffed dinosaur, looking younger than her 9, now almost 10 years. "Tell Aunt Maddie what you told me," Frank said gently. Shelley climbed onto the couch, pulled her knees to her chest. "Before the wedding," she started, voice small, "a few weeks before, I saw Mom meeting with someone. A man. Not the man on the phone. A different one." Ice formed in my veins. "What man?" "I don't know his name. But he gave Mom money. A lot of money. I saw it. An envelope full of cash." Hudson and I exchanged glances. "Why would someone give your mom money?" I asked carefully. "I don't know," Shelley said. "But I heard them talking. The man said, if you can break them up before the wedding, the rest is yours. If not, you keep the deposit but no bonus." The room tilted. "Someone paid Agnes to ruin the wedding?" Hudson's voice was tight, controlled. "I think so," Shelley whispered. "I didn't understand then. But after everything, I thought you should know." Frank pulled out his laptop. I started digging. Agnes's bank records from the divorce proceedings show a deposit of $10,000 6 weeks before your wedding. Cash deposit, no name attached. "Who?" I asked, but even as I said it, puzzle pieces were clicking together in my mind. Who would pay Agnes to? Then I knew. "Your mother," I said, looking at Hudson. His face went white. No, my mother wouldn't." "She hated me," I said. The memories came flooding back. Hudson's mother, Lorraine, had been coldly polite from the moment we met. She'd made comments about my job not being stable enough, about my family being too provincial, about how Hudson deserved someone from a better background. "She argued with me about marrying you," Hudson said slowly, realization dawning. "She said I was making a mistake, that you weren't good enough, that I'd regret it. But I thought she'd come around. I thought. She didn't want us married," I finished. "So she paid my sister to make sure it didn't happen." Frank pulled up more documents. "I have Agnes's phone records too. 3 calls to an unlisted number in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Each call right before or after a cash deposit." We sat in stunned silence. "What do we do?" Hudson finally asked. I thought about Lorraine. The woman who'd kissed my cheek at the engagement party while secretly funding my destruction. Who'd sat in that church, watched Agnes's announcement and never said a word. Who'd skipped our actual wedding, citing a previous engagement. A new kind of anger bloomed in my chest. Agnes had been cruel, but she'd been driven by sibling rivalry, by years of perceived slights. It didn't excuse her, but it explained her. But Lorraine? Lorraine had coldly, calculatedly purchased my humiliation like it was a business transaction. "We get proof," I said. "Hard proof. Then we finish this. Permanently." Getting Agnes to flip on Lorraine was easier than I expected. She'd lost everything and she knew exactly who to blame for giving her the idea in the first place. I met her in a coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. She looked better than she had at my wedding. She'd gained some weight back, cut her hair into a short style that actually suited her. She had a job working retail, something that paid the bills but was a far cry from her marketing career. She didn't smile when she saw me. Just sat down across the table and said, "What do you want?" "The truth," I said. "About Lorraine." Agnes's laugh was bitter. "Took you long enough to figure it out. Tell me everything." She did. How Lorraine had approached her at a family barbecue, all smiles and subtle comments about how Hudson was too good for you. How the comments had grown bolder. How Lorraine had eventually propositioned her, "Make sure the wedding doesn't happen and I'll make it worth your while." "She knew about you hating me?" I asked. She sniffed it out like a bloodhound, Agnes said, stirring her coffee without drinking it. Made some comments about how hard it must be to always be second best, how she understood because she had a prettier, more successful sister too. He played me like a violin, Maddie. Got me all worked up, reminded me of every slight, real or imagined. Then she offered me money to act on it. How much total? 10,000 up front. Another 20 if I succeeded in breaking you up permanently. $30,000. That's what I'd been worth to Lorraine. Or rather, that's what getting rid of me had been worth. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Agnes finally looked at me. Really looked. Because I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story. I did terrible things, Maddie. I know that. I've lost my husband, my daughter, my career, my friends. I own that. But I didn't do it alone, and I'm not going to let that woman walk away clean while I'm the only one who burns. I need proof, I said. Records. Recordings. Something concrete. Agnes smiled, and for a second I saw a flash of the sharp intelligence that had made her good at her job. I recorded every conversation with her. I'm not stupid. I knew she'd throw me under the bus if things went south. I protected myself. She slid a flash drive across the table. Why didn't you use this before? I asked, picking it up. Because I was ashamed, Agnes said quietly. Because admitting Lorraine put me up to it meant admitting I was stupid enough to be manipulated. Because I wanted to believe I'd done it all on my own for my own reasons. But I'm done lying. To you, to myself, to everyone. I pocketed the flash drive. Thank you. Don't thank me, Agnes said, standing. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because Lorraine deserves to suffer the way I have. Make her pay, Maddie. Please. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. The recordings were damning. Lorraine's voice, cultured and cold, laying out exactly how she wanted Agnes to destroy the wedding. She suggested the pregnancy announcement specifically, said it would be devastating and difficult to disprove in the moment. She coached Agnes on timing, on delivery, on how to make it look spontaneous while being perfectly calculated. In one recording, Lorraine said, I don't care if you have to sleep with Hudson to make it convincing. Whatever it takes to get her out of my son's life. Agnes's response, I'm not going to prostitute myself for you. Lorraine, then be creative. You're marketing. Sell the lie. I listened to all 7 recordings twice. Then I called Hudson. It's worse than we thought, I told him. She planned everything. Agnes was just the weapon. Your mother was the one who aimed it. Hudson was silent for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. What do? We use the same playbook she used, I said. We go public. We show everyone exactly who Lorraine really is. She's my mother, Hudson said, and the agony in his voice broke my heart. I know, I said softly. And I won't do this without your permission. If you want to handle this privately, I'll respect that. But Hudson, she tried to destroy us. She paid money to humiliate me in front of everyone I love. She doesn't get to just walk away. Another long silence. Then, do it. She made her choice. Now she lives with it. The press conference was Ramona's idea. You've been the victims of a viral harassment campaign, she said. You have every right to tell your story. We rented a small event space. Invited local media, some of the national outlets that had covered the original story. I wore a simple dress, Hudson in a suit. We looked like what we were, a young couple who'd been put through hell. The room was packed. Cameras everywhere, reporters with recorders, the flash of phones capturing everything. I stood at the podium, Hudson beside me, and told the truth. I started with the church, with Agnes's announcement. Showed brief clips from Shelley's videos. Enough to remind everyone of what had happened, but not so much it felt exploitative. Then I dropped the bomb. What we didn't know at the time, I said, was that my sister didn't act alone. She was hired. Paid $30,000 to destroy my wedding and my relationship. The room erupted in murmurs. By who? Someone shouted. I looked directly at the camera. By my mother-in-law, Lorraine Whitmore. I played the recordings. Every single one. Let Lorraine's words speak for themselves. The room was silent except for her voice, cold and calculating, orchestrating my humiliation like a business deal. When the recordings ended, I said, this is what happens when someone decides another person isn't worthy of love. When someone believes they have the right to control other people's lives. Lorraine Whitmore tried to buy my destruction. She failed. And now you all know exactly who she is. Questions exploded from the reporters, but I didn't take any. Hudson and I walked out hand in hand while cameras flashed and voices shouted after us. The fallout was nuclear. Lorraine was on the board of 3 charities. She was forced to resign from all of them within 48 hours. The organizations released statements about not aligning with individuals who display such moral failings, the same language Agnes's employer had used. Lorraine's country club revoked her membership. Her church asked her not to return. Her friends, the society women she'd spent decades cultivating relationships with, dropped her like a hot stone. Someone leaked her address. Protesters showed up outside her house. Not violent, just present. Holding signs. Money can't buy decency. You failed. Hudson stopped taking her calls. His father, Gregory, called instead. This is family business, he said, voice clipped. You should have handled it privately. Your wife tried to pay someone to ruin my wedding, I said, not bothering to hide my anger. She involved Agnes, involved Shelley, involved all of us in her scheme. She doesn't get privacy. She gets consequences. She's still Hudson's mother. Then maybe she should have acted like it, I said and hung up. Gregory filed for separation 2 weeks later. Apparently, the revelation of Lorraine's scheme had been the final straw in a marriage that had been crumbling for years. He'd suspected her of being controlling and manipulative, but the recordings had confirmed it beyond doubt. Lorraine ended up alone in a smaller house on the wrong side of town, her social standing in ruins, her family fractured. I should have felt vindicated. Dad, I felt tired. 3 months after the press conference, I got a letter. Handwritten on expensive stationery that screamed Lorraine even before I saw the signature. Maddie, I expect you won't believe me, but I am sorry. Not for being caught, though that is humiliating beyond words, but for what I did. I convinced myself I was protecting my son from a mistake. I told myself you weren't good enough, that your family was beneath us, that Hudson deserved better. I see now that what he deserved was a mother who respected his choices. What you deserved was to marry the man you love without someone trying to sabotage it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I simply wanted you to know that I understand what I've lost. My son won't speak to me. My husband has left. My friends are gone. I have nothing but time to reflect on my choices. You won, Maddie. Completely and totally. I hope that brings you some peace. Lorraine. I read the letter 3 times. Showed it to Hudson. It's a manipulation, he said immediately. She wants you to feel sorry for her. Maybe, I agreed. Or maybe she actually learned something. Do you care? I thought about it. Really thought. No, I said finally. I don't. What she did was unforgivable. She can spend the rest of her life being sorry. It doesn't change anything. I threw the letter away. Shelley came to live with us 6 months after our wedding. Frank had done his best, but he traveled for work and Shelley needed stability. We converted the spare bedroom into a space for her. Dinosaur posters, a reading nook, a desk for homework. She settled in like she'd always belonged there. Aunt Maddie? She asked one night, crawling into bed between Hudson and me during a thunderstorm. Do you think Mom will ever be okay? I thought about Agnes. She'd completed her court-ordered therapy and parenting classes. She'd gotten a new job, a better one, using her marketing skills for a nonprofit. She was slowly rebuilding her life, making amends where she could. She and I had met for coffee a few times. Awkward, stilted conversations where we circled around the crater of our destroyed relationship. We'd never be close again. Too much had been broken. But we were trying in our way to find some kind of peace. I think your mom is working on being okay, I told Shelley. People make mistakes. Really bad ones sometimes. But they can also grow and change. Whether she does is up to her. Do you forgive her? It was the question I'd been asking myself for months. Did I forgive Agnes? Did I forgive Lorraine? I don't know, I said honestly. But I'm learning that forgiveness isn't something you owe people. It's something you give yourself when you're ready to stop carrying anger. Are you ready? Shelley asked. Getting there, I said and kissed her forehead. Hudson and I celebrated our first anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. No fanfare, no posts on social media, nothing for the world to see. We made it, he said, raising a glass of wine. Through hell, I agreed, clinking my glass against his. Was it worth it? I looked around our home. At the photos on the walls. Our actual wedding, Shelley's adoption paperwork being finalized, family dinners. At the life we'd built from the ashes of that disaster in the church. Yeah, I said. It was worth it. The knock on the door came on a Saturday morning. I was making pancakes, Shelley was doing homework at the kitchen table, Hudson was outside mowing the lawn. I opened the door to find Agnes standing there. She looked good. Healthy. Her hair was longer, her clothes nice but not expensive. He held a small gift bag. Hi, she said. Hi, I replied. I know I don't have the right to just show up, she started, but it's Shelley's birthday next week and I wanted to drop off her present. Frank said it was okay if I left it with you. I took the bag. She's inside if you want to say hi. Agnes's face lit up with hope. Really? Really? She came in. Shelley looked up from her homework, face unreadable. Hi, Mom. Hi, baby, Agnes said, and her voice broke a little. How are you? Good. I'm doing a science project on dinosaurs. They talked for 20 minutes. Awkward, careful, both trying. When Agnes left, she hugged Shelley tight and thanked me with tears in her eyes. After she was gone, Shelley looked at me. Does this mean things are going back to normal? No, I said gently. Normal's gone. But maybe we can find something new. Something better. She nodded, satisfied, and went back to her dinosaurs. That night, Hudson found me on the back porch looking at the stars. You okay? He asked, sliding an arm around my waist. I was thinking about the church, I said. About how everything fell apart. Regrets? No, I said and meant it. If it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have known who I could really trust. Wouldn't have gotten Shelley. Wouldn't have learned how strong we are. So you're glad Agnes tried to destroy us? I laughed. Glad isn't the word. But I'm grateful for what we became because of it. Hudson kissed my temple. You know what the best revenge is? What? Being happy despite everything they tried to do. Building a life they can't touch. I leaned into him, feeling the solid warmth of his presence. Around us, the neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. Inside, Shelley was safe. Our family, unconventional and scarred but whole, was intact. Yeah, I said. That's exactly right. I never saw Lorraine again. Heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to another state, trying to start fresh somewhere no one knew her story. I didn't care. I'd spent so long being angry, plotting revenge, making sure everyone who'd wronged me suffered. And they had. Agnes had lost everything and was rebuilding from scratch. Lorraine had been exposed and exiled from her social circle. Justice had been served brutally and publicly. But the real victory wasn't their suffering. It was this. Hudson and I dancing in the kitchen while Shelley groaned about how embarrassing we were. It was Friday night dinners with my parents. My mother teaching Shelley to braid her hair the way Agnes had once taught me. It was Frank joining us for holidays, becoming more like a brother than an in-law. It was choosing every single day to build something beautiful from the wreckage. The wedding at the altar had ended in disaster. But the marriage was everything I'd ever wanted. And that was the best revenge of all.